Just a quick disclosure to share in conjunction with this podcast. Each of us are speaking to our personal experiences and do not consider ourselves experts and cannot offer medical, therapy, financial, or legal advice. We represent a wide range of experience on the autism spectrum and will always honor each perspective that is brought to our discussions. Our experiences, opinions, and perspectives are all unique and different and will be celebrated. Thank you so much for listening and connecting with us. Thank you. Welcome back to Navigating Adult Autism. This is a podcast with 7 moms who are full of experience, opinions, and perspectives. And I'm Mary, and we're here with Heather, Tara, Kara, Elizabeth, Dawn, and Cynthia is on the line. So she's joining in via phone. And this podcast is about behavior and consequences. Over 16, over 18 as adults, right? So we're just going to jump in and talk about behavior and consequences because that's also a huge topic in the autism world. And when to, I hate to say discipline as an adult, but we probably have stories from before they were, adults, but it's a big thing. And I'm just going to start really quick. The thing that I can remember struggling with was disciplining and behavior, and because the behavior was sometimes just off the wall or off the charts and didn't know where it came from. And but back when I was in the education world at Rivendell Institute of Learning, when Carrie Duncan owned it, and Ginger Crabtree was the BCBA, which don't ask me what that stands for right now. Heather,
Board Certified Behavioral Analysis.
Thank you. You're really good at that, Dawn. But we always had to, with our children, with our students, and even with my own son, was the ABCs of behavior. Does that ring a bell with anybody? Right? So you always, when there was a behavior, you looked at the ABC of it. What is the antecedent, which was what happens before the behavior? What is the behavior? And then what is the consequence? And that's what you do. And there should always be a consequence for behavior. So that really helped me navigate behavior, not only with the students, but with my own son. And I mean, he's almost 32, so I still think of this. No, I don't. Well, I do give him consequences still, even though he lives on his own. So for you listeners out there, or parents or grandparents, if you're raising, I mean, I'm not, a hardcore disciplinarian because he's almost 32, but do I give consequences? Sometimes when I pick him up from work and he's smart talking me or something happens, well, we're not going to McDonald's or, after work. We just pull up to the apartment. There's some anger, some words. Sorry, there has to be a consequence or he is not going to learn. And I am enabling that behavior if I do not give him a consequence. That's what sticks out in my head from the years of having a son on the spectrum and learning from the professionals, especially Carrie and Ginger. And that has really helped us, I think. And I think our son knows that there's going to be a consequence because sometimes he's very quick to apologize when something happens because he knows what's going to happen.
Does that negate the consequence? If he apologizes in a timely manner?
Yeah, timing's everything, Dawn. So I would say sometimes it does. It depends. I can kind of feel him out on some, is he hangry? Is he tired? Sometimes I say, why don't you go think about it? Go upstairs to your apartment and think about it. And I might drive around for a while, and then maybe bring him, maybe not McDonald's, maybe I bring him Wendy's. That's the other thing I really learned is just to change it up a little bit because they're still not getting what they want, and even when I was working in the public schools and, at the time, maybe with the parents' permission, of course, with behavior intervention plans, maybe their consequence was getting white milk instead of chocolate. It doesn't have to be this major, consequence, but just learning that there are repercussions for behavior is so important for them to be successful in life.
Whether they have autism or not.
Whether they have autism or not. I was
just going to say that. I do that with this is Tara, and I have 2 that are not on the spectrum, and if they're going to sass me in the car, I'm not going to get a McDonald's on the way home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's a reward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're rewarding their behavior.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, you have, okay, here we go. I know several parents in the community, everybody parents differently, right?
Right.
We all have our different parenting styles. And I think it's also dependent on the kid. Obviously, it's depending on the kid. But, I know some parents in the community, you know who you are, maybe, that, that blame the behavior on the autism.
Oh, yes.
So they never get disciplined.
Right.
And there are never consequences. So what is this child ever going to learn, whether they have autism or not?
Right.
If they did something, and I think as the child grows and as we grow as parents and learn about the child, we learn what brings on the sensory issues. Because yes, sensory, which was the podcast before, can bring on behaviors. But like you said, the ABCs, what happened before, we know by now what brings on these behaviors and whether it's sensory or not.
Right.
But there are a lot of parents out there that blame all the behaviors on their autism.
And that we should excuse it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What are these teens or young children going to be like when they grow up in the real world? Because there are consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And so when there are those behaviors and there were no consequences when they were children to correct those behaviors, then as adults, they're going to end up in jail.
Correct.
That's a consequence.
Correct. Yep.
I also think that we need to know each of our kids because all of them are different on the spectrum. And like with Zion, I can tell, there's consequences now. And like he's quick to apologize or something like that. Or like if he hasn't, I was just telling him, I asked him if it was okay to talk about his behavior. He was like, yeah, it's okay. And I said, well, you haven't had a meltdown in like years. Like a really bad one. And he was like, yeah, it's okay to talk about it. But when he would have a very violent meltdown against me, where I was the victim, it would take him sometimes hours, even maybe the next day after sleeping, but he would come and cry and apologize and say, I'm so sorry I hurt you. And as he grew up, and I knew how much he could withhold that, or he could, not filter it, but
Process it
or do it in a different way. When I could hold him accountable for that, this may be a bad mothering thing, but at some point when he would ask for my forgiveness, and I said, Zion, it's going to take me a couple days because you hurt me.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
And I knew that it was brought on by sensory or was brought on by something else, but I knew at that time that he could actually not do that. He could have done it in a different way. He could have gone out, and we talked about sensory earlier, but he could have gone out and jumped on the trampoline. He didn't have to do it against me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's where I finally said, it's going to take me a couple days, but I love you. I forgive you, but I can't forget right away because you really hurt me. And I have the bruises sometimes to show it. So
and let's talk about that.
Yeah,
the violence, because some of our kids do have
more aggression than others.
Yeah, because they don't know how to control it. It escalates and then they don't know how to calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so some violence will come out, and some parents have violently gotten hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or call authorities or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that look like for you, Tara? Are you willing to share that? Like, why did you have bruises? Were you trying to calm him down? Like, how did you get hurt in that?
Okay, so I may have some tears.
That's okay.
It always happened when Jason was traveling, and
Mhm.
he knew that sometimes that just messed up his schedule, or he knew that he could react against me and Dad wasn't here to protect me. A lot of times it was against Caleb, his little brother, because he knew that would really bother me. And we talked about sensory earlier, about how sometimes I felt like he would have a behavior so I would restrain him so that he would get that deep pressure. But yes, it always ended up with Hannah, Jason and I both all took the safe restraint class, because we were having so many problems, and we wanted to make sure we could do that before he got bigger than us. And so sometimes it took Hannah and I both to restrain him. And it was scary. I mean, I've told you ladies a lot of some of the things that have happened in our life with Zion. And there's been many times we've called the police. We've had at least the police here 3 times when he was younger.
And that's a consequence.
Yes. And I knew that he could control it a little bit, because when the police showed up, all of a sudden his behavior went away.
That's how you learn.
Yes.
Watch and observe. That's what I was always told too. Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of times when he was at Infinity, he would run. Infinity's a school.
He was a runner.
Yeah, he was a runner, or he would just have a meltdown and he would just leave. So yeah, we've had a very we are one of the families with a child with autism, or an adult child with autism, that has a lot of violence has taken place in our family. I mean, we've never hurt him, but we've been hurt, and many times where I think I've told you guys this before, that I have a little bit of PTSD from some of the things that have happened. So yeah. So, and I know that we have most of the time dealt with it in an appropriate way. So I give myself grace, and I know that my son is the most wonderful son. I mean, he's so kind and so gentle, but when he has a meltdown, or, in the past, he has pretty much grown out of that. He wasn't that way. He was not the kind. He was not gentle. He was very violent, and it was scary. Yeah. So I have a lot of grace for other mamas who have dealt with that. Yeah. Because I know that we were good parents, and I know that we dealt with it in an appropriate way, and we educated ourselves as much as we could. And our kids, we have a safe room. Caleb knows how to, because it was against Caleb a lot. We put in a safe room in our house, and Caleb knew how to run down and shut himself in the safe room, because a lot of the violence was against Caleb. I'm going to start crying.
Oh. Do we know why that is?
I don't know. I think it was because he just knew it would get me.
Get you.
Yeah. It would get my goat.
That's a good point, because my mother has brought that up to me before, and even my husband said, he did that just for your attention, Yeah. So sometimes we have to stop and think, because you're so into it. I'm like, wow, did he really manipulate me? Like, he was really using me. Like, how did I not see that? So sometimes it is, up to other people to bring it to your attention sometimes, like what's going on, because you're so in it, and you're trying, like, I was always trying to figure it out and analyze it and do the right thing. And
a lot of it was anticipatory. Like, I have to go to school tomorrow. I can't handle it. And then it just burst out. Yeah. A lot of it was school.
Right. And to use their words. If you're out there, I mean, that's another thing and I know I keep saying that, but I really do feel like I had invaluable information and education from those two. But, I would, not just the little students that I had, but I would go in and voice my own opinion about my own son to Carrie and Ginger. And did you do this? Did you do this? Try this, try that. Okay, I'll do that. That was really helpful to me and really invaluable. So yeah, you just have to talk it out, and get as much help as you can. Don't you think we were all doing that? I mean, I was reading that Tony Atwood's book, Asperger's Syndrome. There was a thing on behavior on that. That was helpful. Just anything I could to try and stay a step ahead, but it's hard.
Yeah, and I really liked Brenda Miles' book, Asperger's Syndrome and Challenging Moments.
Yes.
And
difficult moments.
And difficult moments.
That's another one. I had those 2 books all the time.
Yeah, and I bought a couple of copies of those books, and I found the book because Anne Boucher, author who lives in the Branson area, her book, Parent to Parent. So she mentioned that book, so it was like, that's something I need to read. And what I like about it, it was the rage cycle. And so, the rumbling, and then at the peak of the rage cycle, because it sort of looks like a bell curve. And so there's strategies, you see the rumbling stage, here are strategies to try to keep it from escalating to its fullest arc. And then when it's at the fullest arc, they say there's nothing you can do other than wait it out in safety.
Yeah.
Yes. You go to the safe room,
Absolutely.
you wait until the storm's over. And then as you go to that de-escalation, as you're coming down, then there were strategies. And between the first edition of the book and the second edition of the book, she had put another arc in that rage cycle. And the secondary arc was the care person or the parent going through it, because they're going through that rage cycle too.
Yeah.
And I know I scared one teacher once, and I said, yeah, JR does go through the rage cycle. And, the eyes get sort of big. And, well, yeah, he goes through the rage cycle, but he's never been violent. He's never, hurt anybody in his family. He's, but when the sensory issues, that meltdown. So,
well, that's a good book to recommend. So,
yeah,
for anybody out there.
Some things that I struggle with as a parent is finding good consequences. I mean, I know I don't want to reward.
Creative consequences.
Yeah, creative.
That's really going to affect them.
Right, and on the moment. So it's like...
if you could see Kara's face right now, it's very serious.
In the moment, something that, really would make an impact. And, so I probably have struggled with that, go to your room, I don't want to look at you, and we'll talk about it later type of thing. But the social autopsy, which is a strategy that's mentioned in that book, I have Ruth Dunnigan's permission to use her name, but she used this to great effect. When her son was in high school, had a meltdown, or no, it wasn't high school, it would have been grade school. He had a meltdown. He was asked to do a report, and he just crumbles and, fetal position and making a scene. And he goes to the principal's office and they call in Ruth. So what happened? And so she starts back, and she, through a series of yes and no questions. Okay, so did you have a problem before you went into this classroom? No. Did you have a problem when you... And through a series of yes and no, she figured out that the problem was when he was given the assignment, even though he understood, it was a blank sheet of paper. Where do you start? Where do you end? And it was just the fact that it was an unlined piece of paper, poster board, and that's what caused the meltdown. It's like, okay, so we can, correct that. I mean, some behaviors, I mean, I remember when JR was little, I did spank. He didn't seek out deep pressure, so spanking would have been somewhat appropriate. Not beating, but
spanking gets their attention.
It does. And we were in Branson. We'd gone to the Butterfly Palace. Zara's toddler. So trying to keep, eyes on both kids. JR gets hold of a butterfly, kills it. We are warned. He gets a hold of the second butterfly and kills it. We are asked to leave. Yeah, that's totally appropriate. So we leave. Next stop is the fish hatchery, and he's running. There's these big open concrete troughs full of fish, and there's a walkway over the troughs, and it's clearly marked. You don't go there. Of course, he went there. So lay hands on him. And it's like, I know I'm in public, but I don't care. Kid, spank. I set him down, time out. I don't remember how old he was, 5, 4, somewhere around there. Set him in timeout. We get ready then to leave, and I feel a tug at the diaper bag because Zara's still in diapers. And I turn around, and my kid has gotten the spanking spoon, and he flings it, and it goes floating down into Lake Taneycomo. And we all watch the spoon float away, and it's like,
that's really funny.
Well, smart kid. A spanking spoon can be replaced, but...
Oh, but he thought he...
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty clever.
Oh, man. Spanking did not work for Zion.
Yeah.
I mean, That's actually Caleb never had one spank because Zion just turned radically violent when we spanked him.
Yeah.
And I've read about that in some books. I don't know if you guys have either. And that sometimes it's not appropriate for kids on the spectrum because they just tend to repeat it.
That's exactly what happened.
And they don't understand the spanking like a
And
typical
he would get a
kid
bigger
would.
spoon. He would go in there and we actually had to have locks on all of our cabinets or on the knife cabinet because he would actually get a knife and come back at you. Oh, so, yeah, you don't want to, it's better to just not show him how to do anything.
Right.
And another autism mom said spanking was not appropriate because it was that deep pressure. It would have been more rewarding than it would, So.
Yeah, it just did not.
Yeah, it didn't work for us either. And I think my son would just hit me right back. Like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, okay, this isn't.
Yeah.
When he was young, I think spanking was a deterrent. I mean, we stopped, once he got into elementary school, I think. And I guess I'm still struggling for an effective. I mean, we don't go out to, fast food, sending him to his room. That's where he wants to be. That's not, a consequence. A timeout, even as a high schooler, I remember putting him in a timeout. Sit. Mm-hmm. You're not moving. Mm-hmm. Timeout did work for us too. I know other parents who said timeout didn't work, but it did work for us.
Yeah, it worked.
And sometimes. I mean, if he back talks me, I mean, he's in my home. He's 27. There are times where he'll get mouthy, and
how do you handle that? He's 27 in your home.
He's 27 in my home.
Shouldn't be allowed to be mouthy to mom, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that?
You should see Dawn's face.
Bad mommy. Just telling him, which is not much of a consequence. Mm-hmm. You need to be respectful to your mom and leave.
Does he say he's sorry or something? Or
show remorse?
Yeah, show remorse. Because I think Zion actually beats himself up more than I could ever discipline him. Now, I mean, now that he is not violent at all, he now says, "I'm so sorry," after he realizes it. And a lot of times I'm thinking, okay, his cup was too full. He was reacting because I had put too much on him or something like that.
And that memory is consequence enough.
He knows. Oh my gosh, he just beats himself up so much now. Now he's like, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I love you, and please forgive me."
Yeah.
So now his asking for forgiveness and apologizing, I know are sincere.
Yeah.
Before
I don't hear the words "I'm sorry." I don't hear the words "I love you." I don't hear much conversation at all.
Yeah.
So he might have the vocabulary to respond and to tell me, but he's probably not going to do that.
Maybe the social aspect of it. I mean, just understanding the social back and forth of it. Does he understand that? I mean, because
he does.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So she was sorry. She was
sorry. I know JR pretty well. Sorry.
I don't.
I'm sorry, Dawn. I'm sorry.
Do you think the reason why he doesn't apologize is he feels it's a weakness for him?
Or he doesn't think he has to.
Or he just didn't think he has to?
I don't know. When he was younger and he would get into trouble at school, we would force him, ask him to write a letter of an apology to whoever it was, the teacher. So it was like we would almost script it out, and he would write it. And I think we use that so many times, the word, "I'm sorry for," maybe because we forced him to script it. It wasn't from the heart. It was
just a requirement.
Yeah.
But sometimes just requiring them can get them in the habit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From what I've heard and been taught.
Because it's just socially, that's something that, you do something wrong, you need to apologize.
Do you tell him that it affected you? Like the next day, like when he's back to, baseline or whatever? Because I mean, I find that helps is that, this is how it hurt me. you know.
Yes.
Okay.
And even if you're not ready, like I know there's times when, like Zion, my son, Mom, I'm so sorry, and I'm still in it.
Yeah.
Another thing I learned is not to make eye contact, because eye contact is attention. So I won't even look at him, and I'll usually put my hand up and just say, get away from me. Don't even talk to me right now. I know you're sorry. I know you're begging me to forgive you, but I'm not ready right now. What you did was really, really wrong and really, really hurtful, and it's not okay. So please leave my presence. I mean, that's what I do. That's what I do, because really I do feel that.
Yeah.
And it's not okay for him to act like that at all, ever. And so, not that it works the first time. I've done that many times with him, but usually he's backing up and leaving and still begging for my forgiveness and carrying on and carrying on. And I just want to, but I just don't look at him, and I don't, why are you looking at me? I'm like, just, it gets loud, and it can get, but I'm not putting up with that. He's not going to treat me like that. And I might have to do it for 5 years. I don't, it's gotten better, but in my heart of hearts and for his own sake, he can't treat people like that, so especially me. So, but yeah, do we come around and he's apologized, and then when I'm calmed down, we can talk about it and, talk about it, and just say this can't happen again. And it has gotten better, but darn it, I've just really have learned you can't really put up with it. You just, and I think with you and like JR, maybe just, you need to, I don't know, you need to apologize. He maybe needs to learn. I'm sorry, I'm rambling now. I'm kind of getting off subject, but yeah, I just, no eye contact sometimes helps with me. That's another thing I learned, and it's helpful for me too, and for him.
Yeah.
You could even tell him.
Too many words for JR.
Correct.
Is not good. Because he's conversational, but not conversational. Mm-hmm. If then,
yeah.
So,
yeah. But maybe just short and sweet is what I was trying to say. Like, don't look at him, get away.
Yeah.
You could even set a time for tomorrow. So it's, okay, I need time.
Right.
I need time, and you need time, and we'll talk about this at 1:00 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we are going to talk about this.
Well, and just not wanting to talk about it at the time, that's going to be painful for them. That's going to make them think about it up until you are ready.
Yeah.
Good point.
And that's the consequence.
Except JR, I mean, nobody's ever accused of JR of being Asperger's, because he doesn't talk a lot, and he doesn't like to be around people who talk a lot. Talk a lot. I remember he went, a friend and his mom took him to Joplin, to the vintage stock there in Joplin. And so they're driving along, and his friend and his mom are, talking, because the friend has more of an Asperger's. And so finally, JR says to them, "You guys talk a lot."
I can see him saying that.
Yes.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah.
But I've also required JR to answer me. I think I've said this before.
Yes.
When I took him home in the car, he won't answer you sometimes. And that I'm thinking, okay, it's been a while. I'm like, I really need you to answer my question.
Yeah.
And he won't. And I say, that's what a conversation is.
Yeah.
So I felt like I just had to teach him. So finally he would. It would take a while, but I just said, okay, I'll just keep driving until you answer me, because I'm waiting for you, buddy.
Yeah.
But
and I've told him
it takes a lot sometimes, just with all of our kids.
Yeah. It's like, think of me as your boss.
Oh. Okay.
And if you treat your boss the way you're treating him right now, you won't have a job for long. And again, that may be too much talking. I mean,
but that needs to be a different context for him. Maybe that would be valuable to him.
True.
Hopefully so. Because, you can't say to your boss, I'm not going to talk to you about that right now. If your boss asks you a question, you need to have an answer, even if that answer is, let me think about it, or,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'll add, over Thanksgiving, My daughter just turned 30 years old last Thursday.
Oh,
We haven't
happy
celebrated it
birthday.
yet because we were in New York, and actually we went to that autism play.
that's right.
On her birthday.
You celebrated.
We did.
Just from afar.
But on Thanksgiving, I told Kelsey, you need to be here at this time. And I'm one of those people, and she should know this by now about me, that, you're never late.
Right.
If you are late, because things do happen, you've got to call and tell that you're going to be late.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be there, I'm going to be running 10 minutes late. Okay. Well, I'm fixing dinner.
And it's Thanksgiving.
Her and her boyfriend. It's 10 minutes after the time I told her to be there.
Okay.
So I text her, "Are you coming?" I didn't hear anything.
What?
Waited 5 minutes. Then I call her. "Kelsey, where are you?" "Oh, we're just now leaving." I said, "You were supposed to be here 15 minutes ago." We're running an errand." I go, "Okay. Have you already made the errand?" "No, we've just left the driveway." I said, "So when are you going to be here?" We'll be there in a few minutes." And I said, "Kelsey, I told you to be here at this time." "Yeah." And I go, "Okay, when I tell you to be here, you need to be here." I said, "You didn't even call me or text me and tell me you're being late. That's rude and disrespectful." "Okay." And I go, and so I'm going through this, and I don't remember what I said, but it had to do, her boyfriend was in the car, and it had to do, I don't remember what it was. And he heard it because I was on speakerphone in the car. So he said something, and I'm like, oops. But I said, "When are you going to be here?" She goes, "We'll be there in like 5 or 10 minutes. And I said, "I'm just telling you, from here on out, you call me or you text me and tell me you're going to be late." Okay. So, 10, 15 minutes, they come walking in. Roger was cooking on the barbecue grill.
But by this time, it's been like 30, 45 minutes, right?
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Well, and it didn't help either that as soon as I got off the phone with her and was finishing up dinner, my mom was supposed to come. We had invited her. And my mom calls and she said, "I just woke up, Kara."
Oh, God.
I'm like, "What?" I said, "Mom, dinner's supposed to be served here on the table." And she goes, "I'll maybe make it for dessert." So then that just added into
Of course.
it, thinking, I'm freaking making all of this food and you guys are so disrespectful you can't even call.
Absolutely.
And be here on time. And so I
It's
was
Thanksgiving.
steaming. I was very mad. Roger comes in from the barbecue grill and I'm here, telling him, and he's just looking at me wide-eyed like, uh-oh. Uh-oh. This is going to be a great Thanksgiving. And so Roger just looks at me and he grabs a fork and he turns around and walks right out the door. And he's out in the barbecue grill. And Kelsey and her boyfriend come walking. And I think they were afraid to come in. They stayed out and talked to him for like 10 minutes before they actually came in.
Okay.
And so when they walked in the door, I was kind of quiet and I didn't bring anything up. We had our dinner. My mom arrived by dessert.
Right on time.
Yeah. Yep. And they had to leave to go to one of his family functions. So they were leaving and they gave me a hug and I said, "Well, thanks for finally making it." And then they just kind of both looked at me. I said, "Okay, so let's open the discussion here." I explained to him, You've got to call or text if you're going to be late. Just common courtesy from anybody. I said, if you don't next time, don't bother showing up.
Good for you.
So that's the consequence.
Mhm.
And so that was a learning experience as adults, not just her, but also him, because he was part of it. That they don't come unless you call. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll give you another. This was when she was a teenager. She was in high school, and it was probably extreme. But I wasn't sure if it was. I think it was more behavior than sensory, but I think it was a combination because her and I kind of butted heads a little bit, and we were in the car. We were over off of driving around in that East Independence Road, the Walmart Supercenter in that area. And we were both upset in the car. And then she just started escalating and started flailing her arms. And she was in the passenger and I was driving. And she didn't do it intentionally, but she hit me. Mm-hmm. She hit me and smacked me in the head. And I'm like, did that just happen? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, that can't happen. Mm-hmm. So I pull into the Walmart parking lot over into the far corner. I said, get out of my car. And she said, what? I said, get out of my car. And no. So I put it in park, walk around to the side, and I got her arm. I didn't pull her out. I got her arm, and I said, get out of my car. You cannot ride in my car when you treat me that way. Mm-hmm. It's not safe. Get out of my car. And so she got out of the car, closed the door. I rolled down the window. I said, you have your cell phone? She said, yeah. And I was like, call one of your friends. And I put it in drive and I pulled out of the parking lot, left her in the parking lot, standing there. She just standing there. And I'm looking at my rearview mirror. I said, should I have done this?
You always question yourself. Yeah.
And so I pull out, head over on James River Highway, and I'm driving down James River Highway. And again, I know she's got her cell phone and she's gonna call one of her friends. And she's headed in, and as I'm, pulling out, she kind of started walking into Walmart, and I call my husband on James River Freeway. And I said, Roger, I just wanted to let you know that Kelsey hit me in the car, and I left her in the Walmart parking lot. She's got her cell phone, and she is walking into Walmart. And he goes, you did what? He goes, you left her at Walmart? I said, I did. And so I was driving down the highway thinking, oh my goodness, okay, there was the consequence. And so she calls her daddy, and her daddy said, don't bother coming home until you're ready to apologize to your mama for doing that. And 2 days. She stayed with her friend. 2 days. Oh, wow. And she called daddy, and she goes, I'm ready to come home. And he goes, are you ready to apologize to your mom? Mm-hmm. What you did was unacceptable. And she said, yeah. Yeah. So she came home and she was very apologetic.
Oh, good.
But that was kind of the extreme. One of the last ones, I think, that I remember that was rather extreme. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But we never had to fit in the car again.
Yeah.
She never hit me again, and again, I think that was accidental, just her upset and flailing. Mm-hmm. But, but
she still made some choices.
How old was she? Yeah. She was 16, 17.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't like she was 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Leaving her in the Walmart parking lot.
I just want to say that, because all of our kids our children are different. One consequence is not appropriate for another child. You just all have to know your own children.
So. And it was great that you had Roger's support.
Yes, that is great.
Mm-hmm. He's always been pretty supportive.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah. But I've also been more of the disciplinary. Mm.
So
in our family unit, I've been the one that have been kind of the role maker, and I've been the bad guy. He's been more of and then that also, whenever we go and we talk about marriage and about the family unit and another podcast, he's kind of been the helicopter or the one, and we'd have our disagreements in the other room. I was like, no, we need to stick to this or she's not going to learn. But Kara, and we've butted heads in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. on our discipline and what is appropriate, what's not.
Right.
But we always try to keep the line of communication open.
Yeah.
I think that's really the only thing that Jason and I really argue about is discipline with all of our kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
us too, discipline has been a big one for us. Sometimes, some people say it's money and other family members, the in-laws are outlaws, but it's a majority of our arguments have been about Kelsey.
Well, also Jason traveled all the time. So it was all on me.
Same.
back then. So I would try not to run his trips, but I'd be like, you have to call Zion. He's having a meltdown, and maybe he'll stop if you call him or something like that. But yeah, it was, but I think also Jason just wanted peace. And, if you give them exactly what they want right away, it brings the peace back. And I just, a lot of times just wanted to be right. So a lot of it was me too. I could definitely start some of Zion's behaviors by how I reacted. So, I think that sometimes I could have handled it differently too.
Yeah.
So,
well, we all can say that about a lot of things. So don't blame yourself.
But you just don't know. You don't know how he was going to respond. But I was definitely the disciplinarian, and I still am.
Are you?
But I think, like I said before,
but it's not fair.
It's not.
It's not fair.
But I also want to get along with my husband. So do I need to keep it? I don't know. It's just like I don't know. It's like some things we talked about. Like, this was important that you stuck by me, and he definitely would. But but yeah,
I get what you're saying, because I'm sorry, Elizabeth. Sorry. I'll let you. Before I lose this thought, that my husband traveled a lot too, and so I would protect him. I think sometimes because he was on a trip, and I think my mom would give me advice like, "Don't upset him when he's on a business trip. You don't know how that is." But at the same time, she says, "But you can't protect him either. When he comes home, he's going to have to handle that."
Right.
And I did protect him a little too much.
I absolutely.
Looking back, I probably shouldn't have as much, but then sometimes he would. We'll discuss this in the marriage episode, but he would. Oh, well, that's between you and God. I'm like, no, it's not.
No,
it's between all of us. It is not just between. Please do not treat me like I'm a child, and he's your child. Like, we need to work this together. You shouldn't allow him to talk to me like that. And I wouldn't say that in front of my son. I wouldn't say that in front of him, but I would say it when it was just the two of us. But that's a whole nother issue. But protecting husbands or getting them involved. But when they travel, it is a little hard. Yeah. I didn't really want him upset at traveling either.
No. And Jason would always tell me, he was like, when he came home and we discussed it, he was like, I want to help you. It's not that I want you to protect me. It's just, I feel so helpless.
Right.
I don't know what to do for you.
Yeah, they do feel helpless, I think, when they're on the road. Yeah.
He's like, I want to protect you. Like, if he had a meltdown or something, I want to be there for you. But, I can't do anything.
Yeah. If it got really bad, I would call him and let it go.
Right.
I didn't care where he was. And if I was crying or whatever.
Yeah.
Then that's apparently what it would take for him, to really get on our son and talk to him about it. But anyway, Elizabeth, sorry.
Well, no, that's fine, because I'm really looking at kind of a shift here. So I just wondered if anybody had any other comments on that piece, because I'm kind of okay. So I'm kind of thinking too that we're talking about like extreme behaviors, but what about just regular behaviors and the consequences of that? Because I tend to want to protect from some of those consequences that I know maybe they're going to end up missing an opportunity, or they're going to, whether it's, I was trying to rack my brain trying to think of something, but just like, Chase not getting his lunch ready the night before, and one consequence would be, well, he'd have to buy lunch or go without. Right. But I also know that would ruin his day, and he might have a meltdown, and he might get in a lot of trouble. So what do you guys do with that? What do we do with that? Because how far is too far to let them fall? Right. And like, that was just a tiny example.
That's a good question.
But I really would want to, what you guys think about that?
About the lunch one?
Well, just about protecting, because I do tend to protect if I can see a long-term impact, like they're going to miss an opportunity that would help them grow. We'll say like there was a party, right? And it's a social experience, and it's great and they get to go, but They didn't do their stuff to get ready for it. They didn't, and as an adult, didn't you wash my, I need my shirt clean. I'm like, well, you knew about your party. You should have prepared. Yeah. But I know that's the only party they're going to be invited to in 3 years.
Right.
Is the consequence to make them stay home, or do I rush and try to get that shirt?
I think.
What do you think?
Yeah. This is not my own. This is this advice I was given. Let them go to the party, but then talk to them later, and then give them another consequence. Something else.
Alternate consequence.
An alternate consequence.
Well, I have a story from yesterday, and I know I'm talking a lot on this podcast. I don't usually talk a lot, but
that's okay.
Okay,
we welcome it, Tara.
Yeah, Zion bought tickets last night for the circus. He was so looking forward to it. He was going to do a video on it and actually look at his YouTube video. He's already done it. So go to Zion is here at YouTube. So anyways, he had bought the ticket on his own and he was looking forward to it. Okay. So he lost his glasses yesterday and he couldn't drive. He can't drive without his glasses, according to his license, or at night. And I knew that this would set him off. And so I wanted to give him the consequences right there. I was like, you're not going to be able to go because you're going to drive yourself. And I don't have time to do it. I've had a crazy week. But it's just like that. So what I did was, okay, I will take you there, but you're going to have to use your own money to get an Uber back to his sister's house. But that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to make him pay for his glasses. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So that's the consequence, later.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's appropriate. I wouldn't want him to miss the circus or anything because that can happen to any of us, right? You just have to kind of put things in perspective, but that's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, the glasses are like $300 and he treats. So anyways, before that, I saw him starting to ramp up before the circus. He wanted to get there early. He's actually been trying to lose weight so he could get on the elephant because you have to be 165 pounds. I was like, Zion, you could not go on a diet so you could go on an elephant ride. But I went down and searched his room because usually I would say, well, you can't find him, then you can't go. But I went down to prevent him having, missing the circus. I went down and went into his room and it was a junk heap. I mean, I can't believe there's not mice living in his room. And I had to keep it together and not react because sometimes my reaction leads to a meltdown. To a meltdown. And he hasn't had it would have been just a words meltdown. It wasn't be like anything violent or anything, but I had to hold it in so he could go to the circus. and now I'm gonna ask him to buy his own glasses again. So if he can't find him or clean his room, he definitely has to clean his room. But yeah, it's just like I understand exactly what you're talking about. Like, because I wanted him to go to the circus.
No, that's me. I'm kind of a softie,
Yeah.
And so it's hard. And, a lot of the examples you give, I could do, I do let consequences ride sometimes, but there are a lot of times where I don't, but it's usually because of that, because I know it's better for them.
Right.
I look at what is the consequence of me letting that natural consequence take place. And then, and then Heather and I have our guys that, how much does Nathan understand about consequences,
Yeah.
Sometimes
Zachary doesn't at all.
No.
Yeah. And sometimes Nate does an immediate, if I can't even think of an example. He's just,
But would they know, like touching the hot stove? That's always an example they bring up. Would he?
No, Zachary touched the hot stove.
Like, would his eyes get big though, and like he'd pull back? I mean,
he would pull back after he did it. Right. I take the knobs off the stove, the whole thing. The knobs don't even go on the stove because he's accidentally turned it on before, because they're on the front.
Yeah. But consequences a lot of times are for the person to learn. And so if he's not going to learn, right, do we protect him from those consequences?
From natural consequences.
The only thing I can think
that would hurt him.
Right? Yeah. The only thing, certainly, safety. But that's not even, I'm not going to say never. But he does not at all understand them now at 20, almost 3. So I would just have to put stuff in place so that protecting him from the consequence, right?
Yeah.
Like the door and the, whatever it is. But the only thing I can think of, like, we do first and then a lot, which, so if there's something he doesn't want to do. So let's say
Like
read.
speech. Oh, sorry.
He likes going to that. Like if I want him to read, right?
Okay.
If we want to read for 10 minutes, this is what we're currently doing. I'm using a current situation. No is what he tells me. And I say, no, first we got to read and then we'll go to McDonald's. Like I will use, right, the motivation for, I know he wants to go to McDonald's for lunch today. And I will use that for compliance.
How do you
for
know
something
he wants to go to McDonald's?
Because he's already told me. That's what he says right when he wakes up.
Oh, he
on
does.
his talker. Or he'll say
gonna ask how that
McDonald's.
was going.
McDonald's.
McDonald's.
That's what he likes. It's McDonald's. But now he uses the talker and he puts McDonald's and it has his order and everyone's well aware. Anybody who hangs out with him knows what he wants.
Oh, I love that.
For his meals. Food is very motivating.
Yeah.
So I just use that. That's the only type of consequence that I think we've used. He doesn't have, the only time he's not purposely had aggression towards others, he has aggression towards himself sometimes. But then there's been maybe 2 or 3 times maybe since he's gotten bigger that if you, and this is something that just everyone around him needs to understand, if he's getting to a point where I can tell he needs out, that's the only time he runs, and he's like a linebacker.
Oh, is he?
And so he has knocked Grandma over once. She fell onto the couch, which was great.
Oh,
Good, she was in front of the couch.
Yes.
But meaning they were trying to keep him there. You don't do that.
Mm-mm.
So that's the only thing I can think of aggression wise with you don't do that. That's not smart because he doesn't understand that he could hurt you or any of that. He doesn't understand he could hurt himself. So just letting him go is what and we said that after that incident. Like you can't be really upset with him. He does not understand
His own strength.
really what he did or what he's just trying to get out of here because there's too much noise or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing maybe. I don't know.
But he knows
Yeah.
no. He knows no.
He knows no when he doesn't want to do an activity. Yes.
Have
But
you
we
ever
fight
tried
through that.
Have you ever tried a social story?
He doesn't get the social. I don't think he has a lot of reading comprehension like situation. So I don't think his audible, you know what I'm saying? Like he's just not gotten to where.
Graphic novel type,
Just-
A picture maybe.
Picture.
A picture. We use pictures sometimes. But
And
I
you
just
point to what comes next. Like,
I think the schedules and stuff keep him calm, but I think a social story, just like we're going to the airport or whatever, we've had pictures for things like that. I don't know how much he comprehended when he was younger. I think even now we're up to kind of like 2-step directions where I can say 2 things that he's very familiar with, and he can do that, right? But if it's even just like yesterday, I said, he wanted my phone. I said, it's in my purse. Go to the kitchen and go get it in my purse. He couldn't do that. So, so we're still pretty basic on all that stuff. So, so we don't really, this is not something that we deal with. I mean, I'm sure we did when he was little, a little bit too, but I don't know.
Well, it's not a priority to create scenarios where he learns from consequences.
Right.
It's just not.
Right. Well, no, the consequences he's going to have are danger consequences, which
exactly.
we're not going to allow him to do anyway. And we're not going to let him go outside alone
Right.
or whatever. So, and he doesn't get in fights with people. Like he doesn't backtalk or anything because he barely gets McDonald's out. So you don't have that part. So I guess our only issue would be is if he was aggressive to others, we'd have to figure out some way to do that, like you had to, Tara. But he hasn't really had that either. So anyway,
I can't
Well,
say. Yeah, I'm sorry, Cynthia. Go ahead.
all I have to say about this is Kevin travels a lot too. So I was home alone with Eric most of the time, a lot in his early years, and he would take everything out on me, and then I just would have to talk. And then when Kevin would come home, we just talk about it, and then he would sometimes talk to Eric. But I was probably the only thing I could really take. I could never take anything away from him because he didn't really like that much of anything. But I just would not take him to the destinations he wanted to go to.
Mm-hmm.
But I was probably a little bit of a pushover. Anyway, but that's all I don't.
Own it, Cynthia. It's fine.
Yeah.
We just
Right.
own it.
Right.
Okay.
So Cynthia, this is Elizabeth, how does the dynamics change now that Eric has a wife? When you're kind of maybe the consequences and different things.
Yeah, well, even sometimes he'll still kind of come after me and with verbal things, and she'll tell him, Eric, don't do that. She'll say something to him about that. Yeah, and she's teaching him things on the other side, but he doesn't do that to her at all, that I can see at all, anything like that. He still brings it back onto me if he can.
Parents are a comfortable target.
Yep.
Wouldn't you
True.
say?
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yep.
I would say Jason, Zion didn't. Yeah, it was definitely I was the target. It wasn't. He never did that. If it was any type of behavior at school, it was like fleeing. It wasn't like
Right.
anybody. He never hurt anybody else.
No.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Right. Same.
Eric didn't either.
No, but I was a target, and listen, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I was a pushover many times,
Me too.
but I do believe I was, consequence based, because that's
Right.
just what I was taught, and
Exactly. I
And,
wish I had had the ABC training.
Yeah,
I
that
didn't
was
know
really
anything
good-
about
good
that. That was good.
Yeah.
Very good.
yeah, it's still, and I still even use it. The other day, he was crabby on the way to work. I think I set him off, Tara. I asked, well, you pick him up in the morning. I forget young people don't always like to talk.
Yeah.
Not that he's that young anymore, but I asked him something, and as soon as I said it, I thought,
Too much.
I shouldn't have asked him that. And sure enough, he crabbed all the way to work and was not being nice to me. And all of our kids, I think, cycle, they go through, it'll change 8 weeks. And now he's back on his kick of, instead of just talking to me, he just talks to me in questions. So if I ask him a question, he'll just ask me a question back. Drives me nuts. And sometimes it's in a very harsh tone, or it's like I'm an idiot, or, so now I think that was part of the problem the other day. I quit talking to me in questions, because I think we're all human too. I'd had it,
Yeah.
I said, stop talking to me in questions. What do you mean? I'm like, that's not a question. I was just like, he goes, what is wrong with you? I'm like, okay, I'm done, because I'm going to just keep driving somewhere and never come home again. But, so I dropped him off at work. I thought, this is just going to be a glorious start to the day. So what did I do? I called my husband right away. You need to call him at work, like stat. He said, well, I'm on a call right now. I'm working. I said, well, you need to call soon. And sure enough, his day wasn't that great. He ended up getting in trouble, I think, that day for something. But my husband called him and tried to bring him down. That happens more often than I realize, because it just does. But my husband could kind of talk him off the ledge or bring him back to reality and make it a good. Did you tell him to? This is my husband. Did you tell him to make it a good day, Mary? I'm like, oh yeah, I sure did.
With the arm gesture, the whole thing.
Yeah. What do you think I've been doing? Driving him to work? Like,
Don't you think though sometimes the moms are the people, the
Yes.
person, their main person a lot of times?
I think so. Just from
And
talking to
maybe
you guys,
that's the
too.
reason sometimes in an aggressive state that maybe,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
feel like the target maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know.
interesting though, because but my sons haven't done that, but they have 3 older sisters that modeled behavior that was different. They didn't have to figure it out. They didn't have to trial and error.
True.
So I wonder if that, is, but everybody's different. So maybe that just isn't in their personality. They don't
Right.
have that spirit of, wanting to, be them, be so independent and just to, do certain things. But I don't know. I just wonder because really, Hannah's the only older sibling and she's barely older.
Yeah. They're
And
only
so-
15 months apart.
Well, and
So,
too, Elizabeth,
yeah.
as they get older and their lives become different or more complicated, and you have to be downstairs at 9:30 so I can take you to work, and you've got to do this.
Yeah, that's true.
There's
'Cause
other
they're
stressors.
younger.
Right.
than-
Your
Yeah.
kids are
they're
younger.
also-
There's
they're
other
18 and
stressors that
21.
add into their
Yeah.
trying to make it, and to go to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah,
It's a
that,
lot
that
for
could
them.
that could be changed.
It'd be interesting
Not
to
Nate.
see.
It's just really
Right.
relaxed.
Be interesting to see, but
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. You know, and again, I protect him from the consequence of missing the bus, you know, and if I would just let him miss the bus, you know, that, you know, might help Chase move along in the morning and he'd learn, but that would also, we'd have to face that consequence too, and it throws our entire day off.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I rush him along.
Yeah.
I know Dr. Grant, when we were seeing him, you know, we were having some behaviors, and he recommended the Love and Logic. A lot of the teachers in the school systems use that. Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah.
The Love and Logic.
Yeah.
And that's so, you know, you kind of give them, I'm trying to remember, it's been such a long time. You give them 3 choices, one of them being a really good choice, one of them being medium, and the third one being a really bad choice. But that you give them these choices and let them choose. You know, because as they grow up, they're going to have to decide on their own, but you're just kind of guiding them a little bit with the choices. And then if they choose one that probably they're not going to have a good day, then that would be the choice that they made, and that was their consequence. So they gave an example. The little kid didn't want to get up and didn't get up in time to get dressed to go to school. And so the kid ended up going to school with PJs. Well, that kid got made fun of at school. That was the consequence for not getting up in time and getting dressed and ready. And otherwise it would have made mom late to work and dad late to work. And so that was the consequence. And so that was one of them that they had gave examples of consequences to your behavior.
Yeah, that's a harsh one. I kind of like the alternate consequence. Like, you know, let's make your life eat. Let's get up and get going. And then later say, hey, you know what? You almost missed the bus this morning. Could you empty the dishwasher for me tonight? You know, just make it reasonable. Or go to bed an hour early because, something like that. But
because we want our lives to be, we don't want our lives to, you know, be so hard either.
Yeah.
So.
And sometimes being late for the bus and all that just happens. You know, it's not trying to lead them down this perfect road. And that's my own opinion, experience, and perspective.
If we have to go to work, we need that kid to get up.
Right.
You know?
Right. But I think the whole, don't you think, I mean, behavior is just something we're always just going to have with them, and more than typical kids, I think, dealing with that. So anyway, that's all for behavior. Correct? Ready to
Until next time.
Until next time. Until more behavior. Maybe behavior part 2. Who knows?
Yeah.
You never know. But thank you for listening, and I'm going to shoot it over to Tara, where you can find us.
Yep. So we are on Facebook and Instagram at Navigating Adult Autism Podcast. We also, you can find us on our website at navigatingadultautism.com. And you can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, or on the website. And I forgot to do this last time, our email is moms@navigatingadultautism.com.
Great. Thank you, Tara.
We'll see you later.
Okay. Thank you, listeners.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, Cynthia.
Bye, Cynthia.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.